Hello beautiful language learners and welcome back to my channel. I'm Lina.Vasquez and make sure to subscribe if you're not yet subscribed. And in today's video I am interviewing the one, the only, the wonderful polyglot and just amazing woman, Lindie Botes. And if you guys don't know her channel yet, which I'd be surprised if you don't, but I will link it down below. And this is what you are gonna get to see in today's interview. Take it away.
Yes, you could do that all in a day. You have enough hours for that, but is it really going into your long-term memory? It's just like, you know, no hate towards Duolingo, but the whole people really need to be more conscious and mindful of the way they learn languages. It's not like, who are you rushing against? Why is it a race? Just
like if you find out how you learn best in terms of a language, learning is a lifelong process, so you can apply that to... This is the realest polyglot interview I think I've ever done. Without further ado, let's get started and let's get into the video. So, Lindie, welcome to my channel.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Everybody, tell us a bit about yourself. Introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Lindie. I work as a product designer in Singapore. But my hobby is learning languages, so I also run a YouTube channel where I talk about general language learning, and my specific interests lie in Asian languages like Korean, Japanese, and Chinese.
Very cool, very cool. So yeah, we have very different like language groups that we kind of focus on, which is awesome. So you had a really interesting upbringing. How did well, first of all, can you tell us a little bit about it? And how did your upbringing, I guess, tie into developing a passion for languages?
Yeah, so I was born in South Africa and then we moved to France for a little bit and then 4 years in Pakistan and then the UAE and Japan, and now I'm in Singapore. So I've been exposed to a lot of different cultures, and from a young age language has always been very kind of normal for me. Like it's a part of culture. Like I never thought of language as the separate thing that like I have to study. It was always like, you know, everyone speaks different languages because I'm in international school, or you know, it's just so normal to me that I actually didn't take it very seriously at school. So I only started taking language learning seriously in my last year of high school. So before that I was just like, oh, you know, like French is just a subject and Arabic is just a subject at school. I never really saw it as something that I was super passionate about until I started learning Korean 10 years ago. And I realized like, oh, it can actually open so many doors. And I realized that when you learn a language, you learn a different way of thinking. And you can much better understand different cultural nuances. And it sort of just became an addiction after that, where I realized like, wow, it really opens all these doors to friendships and opportunities. And that's kind of what kept me going.
Amazing. I think I can relate to that so much, because I feel like as well, languages I didn't ever see as something that needed to be done. It was as well like I grew up traveling a lot with my mum, and we were always at airports and I would always hear different people talking, and it almost felt like this superpower when you learned how to say even the smallest thing to somebody, and their reaction was just priceless, and they're like, oh, this is a superpower. How can I do more of this? And yeah, I mean, for me as well, I went to an international like primary school, like an IB school, and I was in a class, because I didn't speak English that well, like in the beginning, I was put in this class with lots of like new immigrants, and we were all just kind of trying to put together sentences and things, and you would learn things like my best friend was Serbian and I would learn some Serbian, and then it's just, you're so right, it opens up doors. And it never, well, it doesn't have to be this very strict, monotonous, oh, I'm gonna learn this language because I can get a job, whatever. Like, what are you passionate about? So how did your passion for Korean kind of evolve?
Yeah, that's quite a funny story. So I had a lot of Korean friends in middle school, and I picked up a few words and I could like write my name in Hangul and stuff, but I never really took it further. But my mom knew that I had all of these Korean friends, and then that was way back in like 2009. So then we moved back to South Africa, and she saw an ad in the newspaper for free Korean lessons. And my mom is super spontaneous, and she's like, Lindie, guess what? I saw an ad in the newspaper. Do you want to take free Korean lessons with me? And I was like,
That's awesome.
Whatever, sure. So I didn't take it seriously at all. I was like, okay, you know, it's something fun to do with my mom. And she studied so hard. She was watching Korean dramas every night. She was making flashcards, and I was kind of like, you know, wake up at 8 a.m., go to class. We had these early morning classes on Saturdays. Like, my original experiences learning Korean were not fun because it was early morning classes and my mom was studying really hard and I wasn't. But after going to Korea for the first time, I was like, wow, I'm so in love with this country and the culture and the language. And that kind of just skyrocketed my motivation. And then I realized Korean is so similar to Japanese and Chinese, you know, the CJKB languages. And then I started building on other languages to that.
Wow, I love that. I love that. So yeah, so you really took it as like a step-by-step process. You didn't think I'm going to go and learn Chinese, like, or Mandarin, and then Japanese, and then Vietnamese. Like, did you have a plan, or was it just one of those things where you're like, well, that you just took the next language, you were passionate about it, so you focused on it, and it just all evolved from there?
Yeah. I had a totally haphazard approach. Whatever happens, happens. I never planned. Actually, people will sometimes ask me, like, why did you decide to become a polyglot? I'm like, I did not decide that. And, you know, it just happens. It's like someone asking you, why did you decide to you know, cook this for dinner? It's really just whatever I felt like.
I love that comparison. Yes.
That's how simple it is to me. It's just like whatever I felt like. Like, I heard a Vietnamese song by accident and I was like, oh, this sounds cool, I'm gonna learn it. I understand, you know, maybe people have a different structure, like they have a list of languages they want to learn, you know, get fluent first and then learn. And that's totally fine, you know, if that works for you. But for me, it's really a lot more emotional, like whatever sounds cool, whatever friends I make, whatever music I enjoy. I don't have a schedule, I don't have a structure or a 5-year plan. I'm very, very free.
I love that. Do you know what? In that moment, you just gave me a light bulb moment of how I'm going to answer this question from now on as to why I learned certain languages. It is 100% that. And I think as well, like, something that I'm really passionate about, I guess, helping other people with is identifying their own reason, their own why, and as well their own personality. So for me as well, I always kind of focus on different languages for different reasons. And it's never, as well, I've never had, except for when I studied them at university, which is a different story, because obviously you're given an annual plan and what exams you're going to be writing, so that's a bit different. Or like you as well, because you're studying for an exam at the moment, I'm sure you have certain topics that you kind of, I need to focus on this, so there's some guidance. But for all the others, like after, like post-university life, it was just, you know, through friends and being inspired by music and saying, you know what, now I'm motivated by this. Because also, do you think that having a structure that is too rigid in terms of a plan that is too rigid is enabling or disabling?
That really depends on the person, because I know people for who that works excellently. Like, they need to have this rigid system. For me, I have tried it multiple times, even in my personal life. So I use a book scheduler. This is the Sami flag, by the way. So I use a paper scheduler where I write everything down, and I've tried to map out my week hour by hour, like, you know, breakfast, Bible study, product design, YouTube videos. That does not work for me at all. I was once reading about scheduling, and this person said you have to know what your personality type is, because there are innate rebels, and I don't consider myself a rebel. I think I'm pretty good at following rules, but when it comes to scheduling, I rebel against the past me who wrote the schedule. I'm like, why? Who's telling me I need to study right now? I don't want to do that. So even though I set this plan for myself, even if it's just a language plan, somehow my personality is like, I don't feel like doing that now. I'm gonna do what I feel like. So I'm way too much of an emotional person. I don't mean emotional like, oh, I'm emotional.
No, I know what you mean.
How I feel affects what I want to do. So for me, that doesn't work, but I know it does work for other people.
Actually, if there is one thing, I actually did a video on do you know the MBTI, like 16 personality types? So I did a video on like all 16 personalities as language learners, because that was something that just opened up my own eyes. Like, I love anything to do with psychology and like personality theories. And for me, so I'm an ENTP, which people always ask and I never tell them. But so I would say from what you're saying, you're more an F, like you're a feeler type.
I'm an INFJ, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. We would go well. No, they say ENTPs and INFJs like complement each other in life well.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of ENFJ friends and INFJ friends, and I would recommend literally to anybody, whatever you're doing in life, like to take this test, because the more you know about yourself, the more you can kind of fast track and find what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So for me as well, I'm not somebody who loves structure. I've learned to love it, because when you kind of do lots of projects and you work for yourself, you do need some sort of structure. But I found personally for me with languages, the best thing that works is being motivated by other people, because I'm not an introvert at all, so I learn best with other people. And then having kind of, I call it a flexible structure. So having things like I do set, for example, on like with YouTube videos, Saturday is always my filming day. What I do on Saturday will determine after, but I just know like an overall blanket structure, because life sometimes gets in the way, or you, not so much gets in the way, but you know what I mean, or you just decide I want to do something different today. So I think finding your strengths, as you said, is like finding out what actually works for you is going to be super important.
And I think a lot of people are not ready, or they don't know that they need to take that step. They're looking for the right answer from the start, and it's so important to test out different methods. And it's not a failure if you realize that, taking classes with a tutor is not for you, or writing down a schedule or goals is not for you. That's not a failure. You're learning your learning style.
Yes.
That's fine.
And I think that's so important, because it is a transferable skill. Like, if you find out how you learn best in terms of a language, learning is a lifelong process. So you can apply that to whatever you do, I think.
For sure.
And to know, as you said, like, you now know what type of scheduling method works for you. So that automatically makes it easier for you to plan things into your life and to set up other structures, or non-structures. So I think that's awesome. And as well, something that actually just came to mind is what Richard Simcott said in his talk at the Polyglot Gathering, was in terms of languages, like, when people ask the question, what should I do? How should I learn? He just said, the most important thing is that you do the work. Like, just do something. Exactly. So how do you incorporate all of the languages that you speak into your life? Or do you have phases where you will use some more than others, and then others are kind of, at the back end, and then they come back in? How does it work at the moment for you?
For sure, yeah. I try to incorporate all my languages into my life as much as possible, but it does happen that there are some that kind of rotate out. When I was living in Japan, obviously Japanese was the most, I was studying that for years or months on end, and other languages like French or Korean took a back seat. And now that I'm preparing for a Korean exam, I'm not touching Japanese at all. And what happens in these times is sometimes my accent fluctuates a lot. So if I were to speak Japanese right now, I might sound a lot more Korean. Whereas 4 years ago, when I spoke Japanese more fluidly, more often than Korean, my Korean, even though I've learned Korean for longer than Japanese, would sound a bit with a Japanese accent. So that does happen when you're learning multiple languages and you're focusing on some more than others. And mostly for my more fluent, more advanced languages, I kind of just keep them in maintenance mode. So talking to friends, watching movies, reading books. and I try to incorporate it into my work as well. So I read a lot of UI UX design or product design articles in Spanish and Korean, because there's a ton of content on that. The Japanese content is not so good for UX design, but I try to find stuff that has solid content in foreign languages. And for the rest, it's just social media. Like, I'm always texting people in other languages. I follow a lot of accounts in other languages. So I don't actually sit and study from textbooks a lot. People think all I ever do is like write notes from textbooks, because I post a lot of photos of my notes, but that's actually like a minimal part of my actual learning. And I live alone, so I have a lot of time to listen to stuff when I'm working from home. So I'm constantly listening to podcasts. Not even teaching podcasts, but just content in another language. And if I don't know the word, I just look it up, keep working. So it's kind of my very flexible way of learning.
Yeah, no, exactly. I love that, because you know what? I think that is one of the most realistic answers I've ever heard. No, but yeah, because it doesn't have to be like, I'm a massive fan of like, you know, killing two birds with one stone, like doing stuff and then doing something. So at the moment, like, I've been obsessed with this Spanish like telenovela series, and that's all I've been watching. And like, passively, I'm kind of finished the first season in a week, but you know, and like, I've realized yesterday when I was speaking to someone in Spanish, I picked up so many words, and I was like, oh my God, I feel like this has fast-tracked my Spanish. Meanwhile, I was eating like, you know, my dinner and just watching this thing. So exactly, like, I think a huge challenge that people place on themselves is like, if you're a speaker of even, you know, 2 or 3 languages or 10, for example, to have this feeling of, I need to be doing something every day on each language, which can actually be very demotivating, because it's not very realistic and it doesn't serve you.
For sure. And it can even get like robotic or repetitive.
Yes.
I've seen these very, what's the English word? Not optimistic, like very lofty goals that people make of lists, and I think it's really admirable and sweet, but I don't think it's very realistic. So the list will be like 1 French podcast, 2 Spanish Duolingo stories, 3 chapters of a Korean textbook, 1 German chapter in a book. And I'm like, yes, you could do that all in a day. You have enough hours for that, but is it really going into your long-term memory? It's just like, you know, no hate towards Duolingo, but the whole system of having these days, the streaks, it becomes repetitive. Are you really getting that knowledge? Like, yes. Are you engaging with the content? Because it's so easy to, if you get something wrong, you just remember what the right answer is again, and you just do it, and it becomes repetitive. I think people really need to be more conscious and mindful of the way they learn languages. It's not like, who are you rushing against? Why is it a race? Just
exactly.
Just chill.
Exactly. Like, overzealous goals is the word that comes to mind for me. Like, overly zealous of as well, 100%. I see a lot on Instagram, actually, a lot of like lists. Once again, this is not a, you know, hate statement, or this is just an observation, but of, you know, currently learning this, and then I'm going to be learning like list of 10 languages, or like a study plan, which, not going to lie, I thought that was what I had to do. Like, when I came out of university, I was like, holy shit, I've had this structure for what I do. What am I going to do? So I created this structure for like a 5 language plan. I did nothing of it. And I think as well, what's dangerous with that, or no, not dangerous, but, you know, like, is falling into the trap of, it's like with to-do lists. If you have a super rigid to-do list, just a list of things, like, what people don't recognize is that sometimes these things aren't actually tasks, but they're massive projects.
Yeah.
And when you have a project on your to-do list, of course you're going to feel terrible if you don't tick it off, because it wasn't feasible. It wasn't realistic to tick off in the first place. So it's the same with what you said, I think. If you have this super rigid plan for your day, maybe just be a bit more flexible and lenient and look at it in the long term. And I think that's potentially, well, what I've noticed in kind of the language learning world and industry is this rush, somehow this feeling of, I need to speak 10 languages, otherwise I'm not good enough, so I better do it in a month, because, oh no, like it's really about the enjoyment and your own goals.
Yeah, that's true. It's so unhealthy, and I think it's driven by the economy and by competition and just like human drive to be better people and more productive. But we need to remember, like, we're humans, we can't do everything, and the fact that I can speak 10 languages doesn't mean I'm equally fluent in all of them.
Yeah.
And you know, I didn't start my YouTube channel to kind of put myself on a pedestal and say, like, this is the level that everyone needs to be at. I'm still here learning as well. I don't see why there needs to be a number associated with language learning. Why is speaking 4 languages at an average level better than speaking 2 languages very fluently? I don't know why there are these random connotations tied to numbers.
Yeah. So what would be your advice for somebody who is not feeling motivated at the moment, or is at the very beginning of their process of they're excited, they want to learn a language, but they feel a bit lost and they don't know how to go about it?
Honestly, I think do you mean they're at the beginning of their language learning journey, or?
Yeah, so that was kind of a 2-part question. So the first one, yes, someone who is at the very beginning of their language learning journey, and then someone who, or at any stage, is just feeling a bit unmotivated and lost and like in a cloud.
So for people starting out, I would say not to be so worried about finding the right method or resources. Don't start with a perfectionist mindset of, I need to have the best textbook, or you don't even need to pay a lot of money. Like, there's a ton of free resources online. Like, just start somewhere, whether that is reading a very beginner textbook, whether it's listening to a podcast, whether it's just asking a friend for a list of common phrases. Just find whatever, like, I think it even says in the Bible, like, whatever your hands find to do it. If you find a textbook, great. If you find a podcast, great. Don't waste your time trying to look for the best resources, because everyone interprets resources differently. So you'll find what works for you down the line. So just get started. As for people who are like halfway through their language learning journey and feeling not very motivated, taking a break is totally okay. I think that really helps me personally to get my motivation back. So I can refocus and think, why did I start learning this language in the beginning? Why is it important for me? And how can I refocus my goals? Because there's so much like pressure online to keep improving and keep showing your progress. So I deleted the Twitter app just because I was too tired of seeing it. Like, it just mentally made me tired. And taking a break from social media and a little bit of a break from languages has really helped me to refocus on myself and kind of rethink how I'm going to approach my language journey. And that's been very healthy, I think.
That is amazing, because it's a very personal response as well. And that's what it should be. It's about you at the end of the day. And the world or life isn't about comparison. Life isn't about what you put up on social media. 100%. I think looking at it in the long term, like, breaks are necessary, because balance is not how many things can I balance in a day. It's how many things, what is actually important to me, what do I value. And I think at a time you can only really have 3 or 4 like projects, like in terms of areas of your life that you put time into. And that's okay, because at different times of in your life, different things are going to be more relevant.
On that note, I was going to say that it's so amazing that what you said, balance is not about how much you can balance in a day. Those are such like pearls of wisdom. Yeah, there are different ways of looking at the concept of balance. It's balance in your life and not balance in how much can I stack in one day. That is so true.
Yes, exactly. So as a final question before we wrap it up, what do you think is the biggest myth that you've encountered about language learning?
Oh, goodness, there were so many.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just gonna say it. I have no shame. The myth put out by some people online that you can learn it really quickly.
Mhm.
Uh, the whole like, can I learn a language in 1 week or watch me speak fluently in 2 months? I interpret those videos as see my progress from 0 to 2 months. And that is wonderful. But I think some beginners interpret these
Yeah.
video concepts as this is, um, they interpret it as I can become fluent in X amount of time.
Yeah.
And fluency is such a
Uh,
undefinable thing. Everyone has a different idea of fluency. Is it fluidity? Is it proficiency? I don't want to waste my time like on definitions. For me, something that Steve Kaufman said at his Polyglot conference talk that really stuck with me was, for him, fluency is what were you able to say before and what are you able to say now? What could you express before and what can you express now? And using that as a scale to measure yourself.
Exactly. I love that. Or even I would say like in terms of situations as well. In which situations do I feel more comfortable? So talking
Okay.
about, for example, um, one of your favorite hobbies, in the how much more can you say, with how much more ease can you speak about that topic now
Yeah,
in comparison to before? I think I like that type of situational
definitely.
contextual type of study.
Yeah.
That's so important. Such wise words, such wise words. But thank you so, so much, Lindie. It has been an absolute pleasure. I hope you enjoyed our little chat today.
It was really great to get to know you. I think we have a lot in common. And thank you so much for having me. I look forward to hanging out with you again sometime.
Me too. Thank you so much. Take care. I'll film. Bye. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to my channel if you're not yet subscribed, and I will see you guys next week. Mwah. Ciao, ciao. Bis zum nächsten Mal.